Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be introducing this new series that we're going to be going through together, and I am calling it the Spicy Money series. We are going to be talking about things that we do not normally talk about, and things that, we would not talk about at the dinner table, right? This is not polite conversation necessarily, and that's where we store most of our shame and our guilt and our fear, and where we hide from ourselves and others. And until we bring everything into the light, things can't transform. So with that in mind, and with my overarching goal being to help people really move into a new understanding of prosperity and wealth and how it can create so much good in the world, it's important, and not just important, but vital, integral, that we heal our relationship to, these other aspects of our lives that we tend to keep so hidden. So the first episode in the Spicy Money series is with Dr. Nima Ramani, and we're talking about sex and money. We're talking about intimacy and relationships and codependent cycles and our relationship to ourself. Because when you take away everything else, when you look at what the common denominator is in all of your primary relationships, and I'm going to, say that primary relationships are, with your partner, if you have a partner in life, whether, it's a spouse or, just someone that you have decided to be with, for a long period of time, that relationship, your primary relationship, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your parents, your family, your close friends, your chosen family. And I'm talking about your relationship in business. Your relationship, if you have a partner, or if you have employees, or even literally your relationship to your business itself, and your relationship to money, because that's another primary relationship in your life. And when we look at the common denominator again, it's always you. You are the one who is in the center of all your relationships. If something is happening, if you have a codependent cycle happening in your primary love relationship, it's almost impossible for you to not also have a codependent cycle happening in your business and in your relationship to money. And when we step back and become aware of that cycle, and when we step back and become aware of where we are falling into a victimhood cycle, or into a, the way we talk about it in the episode is, a love bombing withdrawal. Oh my gosh, a love bombing, then withdrawal, then disconnection, then reconnection cycle. We do that with our primary love relationship, and we do that with money. And so it's a practice of noticing. It's a practice of becoming aware over and over and over again, that when you see the signs in any aspect of your life, you can be open to receiving that feedback from yourself, and then seeing where it applies elsewhere in your life. And what's so interesting, and there are so many other ties, but this is where we're starting, between intimacy and money. There are so many ties. But, even in just this first aspect of, are you in any sort of codependence in your relationship or with your money? That is such an important piece to examine and heal. And I'll give you one example of this. Let's say with money, especially, because we kind of understand, codependence in relationships with other humans, right? Like that is seeking, placing your own value, on, needing someone else to validate your worth in the world, right? That when you have that outside validation from someone else, that you can feel good. And when you don't have that outside validation, you feel bad, right? We are emotionally tied to this roller coaster. And, we'll get into more specific details of that later on. But just for, broad strokes here with money, that can look like, when you, let's look at a stock portfolio, for example. When the stock market is up and your portfolio is up, you feel viscerally like excited, right? You feel emotionally tied to, oh, I'm so excited about my portfolio being up. With the other side being when the stock market takes a big drop and you see dollars dropping in your accounts as well, that maybe your account was worth $1 million yesterday and today it's worth 900,000. That would be a really big drop, but for example, if you have an extremely emotional, visceral reaction to that, that is part of that roller coaster codependent cycle. You're relying on the outside validation of my portfolio is up, I feel good. And when you don't get that validation, when it drops, my portfolio is down, I feel bad. That is a clue that there's a codependent cycle happening with money. And there are plenty of other examples of this as well that we might get into later. But when you hear that, if your first thought is, that sounds ridiculous. Who isn't excited when they get more money, and who isn't, like devastated when they have, less money? That's the clue. That's what I'm asking you to look at. That's what I'm asking you to examine within yourself, because it doesn't have to be that way. It truly can be just information without the emotional reaction. And it's the same in our intimate relationships. When things happen, circumstances will always happen. Things will always come up. We can either stay in that cycle of when things happen, I either feel good or feel bad and I respond accordingly, or we can allow things to happen and then just let it be. And when you get out of that cycle of, I have to, bad things are happening. I have to, react. We have to stop it, stop the bleeding. That tends to be, the analogy that our minds race to. No, that's not usually the case. We're not usually actually bleeding out on the sidewalk. If that's the case, then yeah, stop the bleeding. But that's not the reality of most situations. And there are usually all kinds of options available to us, in relationship, whether that's with people or with money. So this topic specifically of intimacy, sex, and money, and how we respond, how we act in our own relationships, both with others and then with ourselves, that is the basis for this first episode that's coming up next. From there, we're going to talk about religion and money. And I will do, a follow-up episode from that as well, where I'm talking to my dear friend, Alex Persglove, who, has had a whole journey of her own. And, she and I had similar upbringings. And it's super interesting, the different paths that we've taken to come to an understanding of, again, that deep within us, that's where our power truly lies. That's where, when we allow someone else to tell us what we should think or do or feel, or how we should, react in a given situation, as is often the case in religion, we give away our own intuition, and we outsource that to someone else. And it's when we reincorporate that sense of self truly that we are able to then move from a place of inner peace, where we are no longer, judging ourselves against someone else's standard. And we are accepting ourselves, and we are moving through the world with a sense of peace, inner connection, full connection to, whatever it is that you call God, the divine, the universe, source. Your relationship to yourself and your relationship to the divine is not something that ever should feel negative or bad or wrong. And Alex really goes through her experience with that, through her life, and learning to trust yourself, and learning to trust your connection to God, in a deeper way. Again, however you see that in your life. And it's fascinating. It's such a fascinating, conversation. And from there, we're going to talk about politics and money, and not in the way that, we think about how, super PACs and money infiltrating government and buying people off and lobbying, not in that sense. That's not where we're going, but rather, really connecting to the causes that are so important to each of us, that making an impact and being totally just yourself, and feeling free to, feeling free to express what's super important to your heart, and then to go out in the world and make change. That requires money. In a lot of instances, we can't build schools to educate girls without money. We can't feed children who are in food deserts and make change without money. We can't help more people without having more money. That's the way the world works right now. And so this piece of activism and impact, it really does require that we also open ourselves up to prosperity, and open ourselves up to seeing the beauty that money can create in this world, and changing the conversation around what it means to be wealthy and what it means to be prosperous, and what you can do with that when you harness it, rather than, again, just let someone else tell you what you should be doing with your money. So, we've got, again, this spicy money series coming up. And, talking about sex and money, talking about religion and money, talking about politics and activism and money. And ultimately, we're talking about your relationship to yourself. And I cannot wait to see how this series grows and impacts, far beyond whatever conversation we're starting right this second, because I do think that, we need a reset. We need to bring love back in to all of these spaces. We need to bring love for ourselves back in to all of these spaces so that we can then share that love with other people in all of these ways. When we love ourselves so fully that we can show up in love in our relationship to our money, in our relationship to our primary partner, in our relationship to the divine, in our relationship to our activism. When we show up in love, that's where the compounding exponential change can happen. So, to wrap this one up, this is just the introduction to this series. I can't wait to drop the next episode. That one's coming. Again, Dr. Nima Rahmani. And I want to hear your takeaways. I want to know what you are thinking and feeling. So definitely get in touch with me at hannah@expansiveceo.com. Because I want to know if you have questions. I want to respond. If you have thoughts or, just need to get your own story out. Tell me about it so we can talk more, and just keep this series going, because I think it's going to go somewhere important, and I think people are going to really start to challenge some of their own thinking in a new way, and really start to make some big transformation. So wait for that next episode to drop. It'll be here any day now. And know that there will be tags on there. So, maybe don't listen with your kids if you aren't ready for that conversation just yet. But it's important. This is really important stuff. So thank you for being here with me. I love this space, and we're going to make some big transformation together. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, @expansiveceo.com, and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough. You are enough. And your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.